What's up, people? New episode of the What's Your Why podcast is out this morning, Monday. It is with my good friend, Ryan Bressner. He is one of the guys who kind of mentored me coming into CrossFit. And ever since then has been a really good friend. I watched him compete. I watched him train. And it was always inspiring to see kind of the passion he put into training, but also coaching and managing CrossFit 701. Kind of like fell out of touch for a while, and it was very awesome to connect with him over the podcast again. Give it a listen. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you enjoy the podcast, give it a rating, share it, do what you will. I appreciate you guys coming back week after week on the podcast.
I heard coming up, and I thought, thanks for coming down, because you just drove 3.5 hours through a snowstorm.
Well, it was pretty rough, actually. For like there was one stretch where it was within 2 miles, 3 flip semis, like upside down, and then like probably 10 more cars in the ditch.
Do you remember, were you with us when we came down from Fargo to the game day championships? It had to have been like 2016, 2017.
Oh, no.
Okay, so it must have been Troy, your sister, Macy, and I, maybe Steph too. But we came down, and there was actually a point where the interstate was closed.
Okay.
So we had to take back roads. What's normally a 4-hour drive ended up taking us like 7 or 8 hours. We didn't get to we were supposed to be at athlete check-in at like 6 p.m.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't get to Albertville until 10 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And then we had to still be down in St. Paul. So at least it wasn't that bad of a drive for you.
No, I'm really glad. I probably would have turned around if it was that bad.
But we had
it's Manny's though.
We had championships to win, okay?
Yeah.
Dedication.
Makes sense. Did you win?
That's another story.
Hold it a little bit closer to you. There you go.
How is this?
That's perfect. Well, you can see it right there how you're talking.
Oh, cool.
But let's introduce you. So we got Ryan Bressner here. Tell us who you are. Where are you from?
Yeah, my name is Ryan Bressner, as Ty just said. I currently live in Andover, Minnesota with my lovely wife, who I promised I would give nice shout outs to. So there's shout out number 1. We live in Andover, Minnesota. I'm originally from small town central Illinois. Moved to Fargo, met that lovely lady, and now I'm stuck in Minnesota. Here we are.
All right, so you breezed over a lot. We're gonna go through your past.
There's a lot to unpack there.
So Southern Illinois.
Yep.
What was your? Let's just say, what was your life like? What were you doing before high school?
Like what? Before high school.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's going way back.
Whew, we are just jumping back. So I grew up in a really small town, right? Town of 2,000. We had one blinking stoplight, not a real one. We also had a subway. That was kind of cool.
Okay.
That was our claim to fame.
Yeah.
In our, like, it was just surrounded by cornfields, right? So not much to do other than really be with your friends, be outside, play, right? Grew up working on farms, grew up with a family of 4 kids. So mom and dad always had their hands full, but they also always supported us to kind of do whatever we wanted, like, activity-wise, right? So sports were always big in our family. Always played as many as I possibly could. My mom was a volleyball coach and a PE teacher, and so just always active and finding ways to try different things and play different sports. So yeah, really small town in the middle of nowhere.
Okay.
Middle of nowhere.
Were you a good kid, or were you getting into trouble?
So I was a good kid.
Okay. Me too.
I was a closet good kid, Ty. Like, yeah, I was mostly good. I still had my fun, right?
Yeah.
But like, I didn't get in too much trouble. That was more of my big sister.
Yeah.
Like, that was her job to get in trouble, right? And then so you're number 2, I'm number 3. You can use your older siblings' trouble a little bit to get out of things, right? So,
my older sibling had no trouble.
See? Michaela was an angel.
Yeah, so I was screwed.
There was nothing that you could use from her to cover up your trouble.
No.
But yeah, no, I was mostly a good kid. I behaved myself. Yeah,
There you go.
I didn't get into too much trouble.
Okay. Yeah, me neither. But so let's get into high school. I know.
Cool.
Well, I met you you were working at a CrossFit gym,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So you're into athletics, obviously. What was high school like? What was athletics like?
Yeah. So being a small town, you can play as many sports as you want, right?
Yeah.
So I played football, basketball, and baseball in high school. I was a 5'8", 185-pound lineman on both offense and defense, right? So, like, we're talking small school
You said
football.
185?
Ish.
Yeah, okay.
I may or may not been a little bit of a bigger kid in high school, like maybe 195.
Okay.
Um,
Were you like jacked or were you chubby?
No, I was chubby. I was a chubby kid.
Okay.
I was a chubby kid until about middle of junior year into senior year. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But football, basketball, baseball, like playing all the sports.
Yeah.
Not good at basketball. A lot of pine. Sat the bench a lot there. Believe it or not. But yeah, then from there, kind of a pivotal moment, like junior year of high school, right?
Okay.
I realized that baseball was always my thing. So even though I played football, basketball, and baseball, I just had a God-given ability to be somewhat decent at hitting a baseball. And even though I was in those 3 seasons, during football season, I was still playing doubleheaders on Sunday afternoons. During the winter, I was still doing indoor hitting throughout basketball season. And then obviously you get into spring, it's baseball season, summer, baseball season. So it was play these other sports, but also it's baseball 365.
Okay.
So that was like my first love.
That kind of brings up a discussion point. So
Let's talk.
You did all 3 sports, but you specialized in one. What's your thoughts on people specializing with their kids now?
Great question. I think that youth sports has started to lose its original intention and purpose. I think we've moved so far away from pure joy and playing the game for so many people that it shouldn't even be a discussion. Like, little Timmy, do you want to play multiple sports? Does that make you happy? Yeah, it does. Awesome. Go play football and basketball, right? Oh, Timmy, you don't actually enjoy playing basketball and coach told you should to keep up conditioning for football. Don't do it, right? Yeah. I think it's just become too politicized. No, politicized isn't the right word. There's too much of an agenda there for kids, right? Like, what's the percentage of youth sports making it to be a college athlete? It's like 2%.
Yeah.
Right? Great. Let's stop worrying about that 2%, right? Like, let's let the kids have fun.
And they'll find their way.
If you want to have training philosophy discussion, then sure, we can talk about it. But like, that's my general idea.
No, that's what I was looking for. I was just curious because, well, I think the way you talked about it was a good way to do it. Like, you had your sport you liked. I'm sure you enjoyed doing baseball throughout the whole year. Yeah. But you still did the other sports because I'm sure you enjoyed them.
Part of it too is being small town.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to be with my friends too. Yeah. My friends were the ones that were playing those other sports, right? And so there's part of it that's that social dynamic. There's part of it that's the athletic dynamic. And then there's part also that's the psychological dynamic of being part of a team, constantly contributing, wanting to like work towards goals with other people, right? Because even in those off seasons of like you're doing hitting clinics and stuff like that for baseball and basketball season, like that's very individualistic, right? You're on your own. So yeah, I think there's multiple facets to that, and like just being involved, you know?
For sure. You want to fit in, you want to not miss out. You don't want that FOMO.
No FOMO.
Yeah.
No FOMO of high school sports back in the day.
So what else were you doing? Were you good at school? Did you like school?
Yeah, I have a God-given ability that I didn't really have to like try super hard. I definitely didn't apply myself as much as I maybe should have. But I was able to get through well enough that like I didn't ever really have to worry about it until grad school, and we'll get to that point,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, high school was kind of a show up and do it, but mostly just go through the processes and enjoy the time with friends and focus on baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. So that kind of brought us into high school, and you went to Southern Illinois, right?
That's correct. SIU.
What was the process of choosing SIU?
Oof. You ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to play baseball, right?
Okay.
Like that's my thing. I worked my tail off. So here's that pivotal moment, right? Back to junior year, and then I'll get to college.
Okay, perfect.
I went to a camp, a baseball camp at Western Illinois University. Coach was a very genuine, nice guy, right? And of course, I went to all sorts of camps, but I never really had any coach pull me in and say, like, Ryan, here's where you're at. Here's what you realistically need to do, until it was, I think it was like right after, it would have been early summer, junior year. And the coach
Going into junior year?
going into senior year.
Okay.
And he basically, end of camp, sat me down and was like, Ryan, like, I totally respect how hard you work and like where your head's at. You know, you did good enough grades. He didn't say that, but like good enough grades, right? Like you're applying yourself. He's like, you've got to get faster. You got to lose some weight. You've got to sharpen up, be more athletic. Like, I would love to have you come just based on your skill set, or like, you know, your mental side of things, because you work hard, but like, you got to figure that out.
Yeah.
I took that to heart.
This is your high school coach? This is
This is Western Illinois.
Okay.
Right. So a D1 baseball coach.
Okay.
Just coming out of a camp. Right. I took that to heart. That summer alone, I think I went from like 190, 195 pounds down to like 180. Right.
Okay.
Football coaches didn't love that.
No.
Right. Because, now our offensive lineman just went from 195 to 180. But I knew that's what I had to do. And so I really just sharpened up. Eating habits were a lot better to that point. Like, I didn't really care about it.
Yeah.
Also, I actually started taking joy and passion in training. That's where I really had my first exposure to, this is fun, right? So did that, went through senior year, had a great year. I actually went on a visit to Western Illinois. Basically was told, hey, you've got to, what do they call the phrase? Like a walk-on spot, like a recruited walk-on, right? So awesome, great. I'm going to go to Western Illinois. In that spring, Western Illinois' coach had a heart attack and passed away mid-season. So threw a curveball into plans.
Yeah.
I went to a junior college just for one semester because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I settled on SIU, transferred there my spring semester of freshman year.
Okay.
So
did you walk on to SIU?
So yeah, I was at SIU. And then eventually I got into club baseball, which that's a whole nother story. But basically it was, I started to lose the joy of playing baseball. I was so hyper focused on the external at that point, that I forgot why I was doing what I was doing. And then I ended up going back to club baseball, which is just the guys organizing a team. You go play other colleges and you hang out and, drink beer after games. Like it was more of just for the joy of it.
Yeah.
And I refound that passion. So yeah.
So you did that before you joined the team at SIU, or?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So did they find you on the club team and like, hey, come play for us? Or
No, so I did go to SIU just with the intentions like, I'm going to try to walk. I'm going to go through this.
Yeah.
Did that for a year, and then it was, okay, club baseball, only club baseball. Like, I'm going to do this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So which
was cool because there was a couple guys, I think 3 or 4, who intended on walking on, that just things didn't really work out. Like it got too serious. We all went to club baseball and we dominated. So it was 3 years of really solid baseball, but going back to that like joy piece, that intrinsic motivation, like I'm here because I enjoy it and I'm having fun with it.
So you sound a lot like Bert Kreischer.
Bert Kreischer?
He's a comedian.
Am I that funny?
No. So
Okay.
he was recruited. He's the guy who takes his shirt off. He has the machine story about him.
Apparently, I need to watch more YouTube videos.
You need to watch this guy. He's hilarious. But he got recruited to Florida State.
Okay.
Scholarship to play baseball.
Okay.
And he's like, this is too serious.
Yeah.
I'm here to party. Quit baseball. Didn't do the club team, but he wanted to party at Florida State.
Yeah.
And so he went to school for 7 years to party.
Oh, wow.
And
that's like Tommy Boy. Like a lot
yeah.
of people go to college for 7 years.
Yeah.
They're called doctors.
But he didn't get his doctorate.
No.
He's a comedian. But I think it's cool that you recognize the intrinsic piece of wanting to play for the joy of it.
I don't know that I noticed it at the time. This is more of in time, more maturity. Now being able to reflect back and like what my core values are and who I am as a person, I'm able to say that now. In the moment, I think it was just like things were moving so fast, and I'm a kid. Like I'm dumb and young. Like I don't know what I'm doing, and so it just became too much, you know.
Okay.
But now, yeah.
So you're at the same time you're going through school. Are you taking school seriously? Is that something like you're in a field that you want to be pursuing?
Yeah, good question. My sole focus, and here's part of it where I lost the real like priorities here. My sole focus was for so long, like, I want to play baseball. I want to play baseball. It wasn't until probably the start of my sophomore year at SIU where I really started to refocus and like shift back to, oh yeah, there's more to life, right? Like that's when I realized, okay, I've got to do, I can still love this game. Like I can refine that love for this game, but this game isn't going to be everything to me. Like there's more to life. And that's where I started to realize also my passions were primarily in exercise, fitness, sport world.
Yeah.
So obviously it makes sense to jump into kinesiology. Let's study how the body moves, right? Yeah. From there, I started to specialize into sport management. So like,
Is this still undergrad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I also specialized in exercise and sport psychology. Just super fascinating to me for whatever reason. So yeah, that was what I ended up getting my undergrad in was a sport management kinesiology degree with focus in exercise and sport psychology.
What's like what do you learn about for sports psychology?
Yeah, so there are two facets to that. There's the exercise side, which is, let's talk about like the concepts of why people are exercising, why don't they exercise, how do we get into the mental side for folks just getting started, like why is it tough for some people to get through the door of a gym?
So it's not just athletes, it's people coming off the street.
That was more of the sports side.
Okay.
I also had the fortune of studying under a professor that she was a really strong sports psychologist. She would go down to Memphis to work with the Grizzlies and work with their athletes that were coming off of injuries and working past those mental blocks of like, I'm scared to do this. And it might have been like subliminal, but like they couldn't take that next step or get back to their full capacity because of injuries. And she would work directly with them. So in the sports side, it was learning about flow, the state of flow, which I guarantee we're going to talk about here in a little bit when we get to the CrossFit.
Yeah.
But also like getting over injuries and getting over, the yips, like the baseball stuff, right? Like things like that. Those were the concepts in the sports side.
Interesting. So, yeah, you mentioned like two things, the flow and yips.
Yep.
Do you, from studying it, and like being with somebody else to study it at like a professional level, do the yips go away when you're in flow?
Two totally different things. So think of like the yips are almost a mental block that prevent you from flow.
Okay, so what's the yips?
So
I might have a different definition in my mind right now.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm trying to think of the most recent case. There was a guy in Major League Baseball here very recently, like a really solid infielder. I think he's a second baseman. And basically like routine things now become really difficult.
Okay.
Right? Like as a professional athlete, you've spent 20, 30 years doing these things routinely, and now all of a sudden a ground ball to you, you're overthinking it. You bobble it, and like you botch this easy play just because you've got some type of block there. So basically it's like we've got to break through whatever this mental barrier is and go back to foundational things and rebuild the mental capacity to make a routine ground ball play.
So like if it like super easy terms, if you're playing bag toss,
Yep.
and you just have to get one on to win,
Yep.
and you can't do that.
Think of it like you're in the highest level of bags,
Yeah.
right? And you've always been like one of the best,
Yep.
right? And you get into this tournament and you can't even hit the board.
Oh,
It's
shit.
not like you get in a moment and you can't perform. It's like you literally can't perform at all.
So was she studying athletes who have gotten to this point in their career?
So most of her work was actually on the injury side.
Okay.
That was just one of the concepts that like I really
That
took.
you were there. Okay.
Yeah. Most of hers was on the like this person tore their ACL,
Yeah.
right? And they're trying to come back, but there's this like roadblock or barrier that's preventing them from, doing their full capacity.
So you're in undergrad, and it sounds like you started to get way more fascinated about your schooling.
Yes.
So is this when you
Because
decided?
at that point I didn't have to study nonsense that I didn't care about.
True. You didn't have to do generals.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, a few, but different story.
But mostly it's classes you're interested in.
Right.
And the intrinsic motivation.
Correct.
Is motivating you. So
Yep.
you're finishing out your courses for undergrad. What kind of led you to going in? Did you go straight into your master's?
No. So there's just a 1-year break here.
Yeah.
But I was still constantly working towards that. So coming up on junior year of college, and we're skipping over a lot here. So if you wanted to get into like other cool stories later, we can definitely do that.
Well, if you have some.
But totally different topics. So like if we get to outdoor like nature adventure conversations, we're going to revisit these things. But this has nothing to do with it.
Okay,
So hard
perfect.
turn. So no, coming into the summer between junior and senior year of college now, I did an internship with a minor league baseball team.
Okay.
Thought it would be really cool, right? Get in it and realize how cutthroat that industry is, and how difficult it really would have been to be sustainable, to create like what I want, what my vision is for, having a family and having some balance there. I mean, there were times where team would be home for 6-7 days straight, and you're working from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. every single day, right?
Oh.
There was a time, I'll never forget this, in a 10-day stretch, we had, I think it was a 3 or 4 game home stand. We had 1 day off. We had a concert in the stadium, I think a day or 2 later, and you had to put plywood down the entire infield to bring the stage out. You also so we had to set this massive stage up, and then we had a day off after this concert, and then they were back.
So the baseball or the concert?
The baseball team was back.
Okay.
So 1 day concert, day off, baseball game. The problem with that is now you have to pull all the plywood. You have to tear the stage down.
Yeah.
Pull up all the plywood. You have to redo all the turf and like get it back into working condition. There's these little splinters of wood all over the field. There's trash everywhere. So that day was 8 a.m. until about 3:30, 4 a.m.
The next day,
Go home, sleep for a little bit. We all came back at like 11 o'clock or noon the next day, worked till like 5 or 6 just to get the field back in working condition. Team returns home from the road. And of course, like, we got to, clean jerseys and get the locker room back in working order. And then the next day, another home series starts. So it was like, I think that was one of the moments where I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So I started to become more fascinated with like the concepts of just recreation in general, which led me into kind of the next few years of my development, so to speak.
Yeah. So when you say recreation, what do you mean?
Yep. Just let's start like 10,000 foot view. Just general concepts of like recreation are leisure time, right?
Okay.
So if you look at your day-to-day life, there's things that you're required to do.
Yep.
Work, cooking food, cleaning the house, all those sorts of things. But when you have those moments, some of us have more moments than not, right? But when you have those moments where it's true like free time, like that is the definition of recreation. Okay. I would consider like a lot of health and wellness, like fitness type stuff. Some of it fits within recreation, some of it not, just because like there's a component of actual health and wellness, like taking care of yourself. But like back in the day when we were doing like competitive CrossFit type stuff, or you know, you with some of your training and marathon and ultra marathon running, like that's like you're not getting paid for it, so it's very recreational.
And it's not like you could stop running at 2 miles and you're good for the day,
right? And then
you're
you
healthy.
hit mile 50, and then
I haven't hit mile 50 yet.
I know, I heard,
but
I heard the story.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah. This year's the year.
Yeah, I was not going to come back, but I decided I'm going back this year.
I know, I heard last night. And now I can't wait. Like, I'm going to be tuned in for the entire thing. I'm going to make somebody follow you with a GoPro and, like, just be watching the webcam.
Well, I think Troy should have had we should have put a GoPro on Troy just because he was right behind me that whole stretch. And you could have probably watched me deteriorate over 11 miles.
I heard the story last night, and he's like, yeah, I knew he was suffering, and I didn't realize how bad it was until Michaela saw your face and was like, we got to take him to the hospital. Like, you guys went way too far. So,
well, we had to.
So the nice thing is next year, if you've got a webcam on, I can even phone in and say, hey, look, like, Troy, I know you're with him, but also you might want to just take him to the hospital, but you're going to make it past 50.
I'm going to finish. Because it's only 6 more miles past 50.
Okay, cool.
It's 56.
If you make it to 50, might as well make it to 51.
Exactly.
52, finish up.
See, the daunting piece is you get through that 11-mile stretch, and it's 8 more before your next stretch. That's for the next break.
That's fair.
But the thing we could have done, which I should have done the first year, and I wouldn't have had to the whole situation of the second year, would have been go back to the hotel and come back at 6 a.m. when it's cold. Because that's a completely acceptable thing at ultras.
Okay.
But that whole night is just added to your time.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I could have gone to the hotel, slept,
woke up, and then picked back up.
Exactly. Come back to the exact same spot.
We talked about it last night with Troy and Michaela when they were over to our house, the Berkeley marathons, that documentary. Right?
Yeah.
And like, people's goal isn't to win the race for most of them. It's like, I just want to survive.
Exactly.
Right. And so you've got people that are like just sleeping in tents for like 4 hours. And that's cool as long as I get done in the timeline. Right.
And the same thing the first year could have been sleep in my parents' car for a couple hours until it got to 9 o'clock and it's 30 degrees cooler.
Yeah. Yeah. Do more of the running at night versus when it's 105 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was the exact same temperature the first year. But
so you're telling me you didn't work smarter after the first year?
I've been like thinking about it more recently because I've been like getting my miles up more and more recently. And the doctor said not to take salt pills.
Okay.
Which every ultra runner I've followed, every like documentary I've followed, they all take salt pills.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh, I'm going to take salt pills.
Yeah.
But I thought about it, and when I started jiu-jitsu, I was totally not used to that training. And so I would start sweating like crazy.
Okay.
And I would take a salt pill before I would do that.
Okay.
Especially if I ran earlier in the day. So I sweated.
Makes sense.
I was deprived of the sodium and whatnot. So I was like, I'll take one before jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But I found out that if I take them, I cramp.
Okay.
And so maybe I have a sensitivity to it, or maybe I just don't need them at all.
Yeah.
And so once I hit would have been the third aid station of the day was the first time I took them. Okay. And it was not the next stretch, because the next stretch was only 4 miles. The stretch after that is when I felt my first cramp. Yeah. And that was a 3-mile stretch. And then I saw them again. Okay. But it was a super small one. It was like a a big step up where I like fully extended my
Okay.
calf and it locked up a little bit. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then I had my rest where I right before I started that 11-mile stretch.
Okay.
And so I was taking them consistently throughout that point. And then on that stretch with Troy, I probably took 4 or 5.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be like 1.5 per hour
Yeah.
pills. So
Okay.
like every 2 hours, you should have 3 pills taken.
Sure.
And I think I just overloaded my system. And I think that's why my sodium
Too
levels
much.
were so high.
Yeah.
And then it was like flushing my system, trying to get rid of it.
Okay.
And that's what caused the cramping.
Makes sense.
And then what the doctor said is you had so much potassium that you weren't able to flush it with enough of something else.
Yeah.
And those salt pills are also pretty high in potassium.
Yeah.
And so
When you're not getting any other nutrients while you're
Exactly.
like you're not getting any protein, you're probably just
Yeah.
stuffing yourself with simple carbs. Like,
exactly.
yeah, that makes
And
sense.
so he's like, don't take those again. He's like, you can take like Gatorade
Yeah.
mixes like that, but just the pills are too high concentrate.
Okay.
And so your body's not going to process it. And so I think there's a chance it would have been just fine
Yeah.
if I didn't take those pills.
But
But
blew
you
it.
never know.
But you blew it.
Yeah.
Next year.
Exactly.
Next year, no tablets, no pills.
Because the next day, well, I had 5 IVs. I didn't take any pain pills or
Yeah.
anything like that. I was only basically treated for lowering my blood sugar, or no, increasing my blood sugar,
Okay.
and then which would be normal for anybody running one of these races, is
Yeah.
to have
Well, of course, you're putting
And
your body
then
through extreme situations.
pumped full of fluids.
Yeah.
So I had 5 IVs that night. But by like noon the next day, like I could walk around just fine.
Yeah.
And I wasn't able to walk around the
Okay.
year before for like a week.
Got it.
And
But it's
so
probably those extra electrolytes and fluids.
yeah,
that they
and
pumped
so
into
it
you.
was solely the cramping that
Yeah.
got me. Because the year before was like my heels were, this was all a blister.
I believe it.
And so the whole thing was like tore off. And so I had one small blister on this foot.
Man.
But I don't know if Troy told you the trail it's a cattle trail.
Yeah.
And so every step you take
pretty-
folds in on
Yeah.
each side. And so these get rubbed quite a bit, but the second year I was gooping them up every time I
Makes sense.
stopped. And
Yeah.
so that wasn't a problem.
That makes sense.
And so I think it was just the sodium. Cuz I could have ran the next day.
Yeah.
But the doctor's like, you
Take a week.
DNF'd, because he knows that you can go back.
Oh, got it.
And he's like, I'm not gonna let you leave the hospital
Yeah.
if you can still go back.
Got it.
And he was like, asked 4 times if I already DNF'd.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I did. Then he asked again. I was like, yes. And then
Stop
he's like,
lying to me.
Okay, you
Yeah.
can go home today then.
That's funny.
So, or else he was like, because he thought for sure I was gonna go back.
Yeah. That's like stereotypical mindset of an athlete though,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I'm going to put my body through so much. And I don't care what it takes. I've got this vision, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do whatever I have to get there.
Yeah. And the way I felt leaving, like I felt like I could have for sure walked it.
Yeah.
It was 30 degrees colder the next day. And I had
But you
until
told him you DNF'd. So you could-
yeah. So and I had Kaba and Troy DNF'd me.
Well, yeah. Your
when I
sister's not going to
left.
let you step back
But-
out there. After the stories I heard, like, zero chance your sister's letting you step
Yeah.
back out there.
That was rough.
She's a good sister.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 moments that I know where I was like really screwed. And it was one, I got off the trail and I was laying on the side of the gravel road
Okay.
because I couldn't stand it anymore.
Okay.
And then I was like, that's pretty fucked. And then when I stepped out of Troy's vehicle, when we got back to the hotel,
Okay.
and I couldn't stand, but I had to throw up.
Yeah.
And so I was like almost falling into my puke.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
But I made it back into
I'm
the
proud of
hotel
you for
room.
that. Good job, buddy.
Yeah. I couldn't also undress myself.
I mean, that's a
But-
normal daily thing for you anyways.
Yeah.
So,
But anyways, we're focused too much on me. Let's get back to you.
yeah,
And we'll get to like mindset and like
sure.
with yourself here soon.
Sure.
But you're finishing up at this baseball team,
Yep.
minor league team.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll jump. We'll go through these couple parts kind of quickly because I think a lot more of the story, like who I've become today, there's a lot more of that story that happened once actually you and I have, like, since you and I met each other.
Yeah.
Not that these years weren't transformative, but I'll go through it quick, right?
Yeah.
I moved about an hour and a half south of where I went to undergrad to a school, Southeast Missouri State.
Okay.
Was there for a year doing some like entrance level classes to get an MBA. Okay. So undergrad was in sport management. Obviously didn't meet all the requirements. So just taking prereqs to be able to jump to an MBA.
Yeah.
Right. Also was working at the rec center at that point, just as a basically like a graduate assistant type role.
Yeah.
And long story short, realized that in that moment, that's the first time I ever really had to like actually try for school.
Yeah.
And it was a wake up moment. Went through some other just like general life events, realized that I wasn't quite ready for it. Just wasn't a great overall experience. Like there were some really good people in my life that were very helpful in Missouri that like I actually still look at as very close friends, even though I was only there for a year, but it wasn't the place for me in that moment. And I very much felt that. So I moved back to Carbondale, to Southern Illinois, and I went back to grad school there where I got my master's in recreational administration.
Okay.
Cool thing about the program there at SIU, they kind of let me make it my own. So I still dabbled a little bit in the kinesiology side, and I also dabbled in the business management side as well.
Okay.
So it was a good program. The beauty of those 2 years was it gave me 2 years where I was technically only working like 20 hours per week on a graduate assistantship that was covering my tuition to actually figure out what it was that I wanted to do with my life.
Yeah.
Right. Keep in mind, I got done with baseball senior year of college, moved to Missouri, was bored, had nothing to do. And that's when I found CrossFit.
Okay.
Also, like at the end of my time in Missouri.
Yep.
And so that's part of like why I struggled so much, because I'm trying to go from this like athlete mindset to now like I got nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I'm away from family, friends, like completely on my own. But that's when I found CrossFit. And so I had 2 years really to like, okay, what am I doing here? And also had a lot of free time to train.
What year was this?
So this would have been
CrossFit.
It would have been graduated undergrad in 2011, spent all of 2012 in Missouri. So it would have been late 2012.
Okay.
Ironically, so I was only like an hour and a half away from Carbondale, which is where my brother was living, a small town right outside of it. And actually I came up and went to a like trial class with him. It was mostly for him.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm fine. I don't need this. Right. It's cool.
Yeah.
I just want you to start some type of fitness program, or at least that was my excuse in the moment. Right. And I instantly fell in love. So then I went back to Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I found a gym there. And that's when I started. I was there for a couple months before moving back up to Carbondale.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So you fell in love with CrossFit.
I fell in love with exercise racing. Yes.
Was it that first trial class with your brother?
Yeah, it was. It was. So I did the trial class, and then he eventually became a good friend. His name was Joe Smith. He's like, I don't know how, I know he was like a great wrestler, right? Like he's like 5'6". Imagine just a dude yoked out of his mind, right?
Sounds like a wrestler.
He was, I'm assuming he was a good wrestler,
Yeah.
right? But I made him stick around after this trial class and like teach me all these things for probably 45 minutes after this trial class.
Okay.
Right. And so like I was hooked. The next week I found a gym in Cape, and like I got hooked up with some really great guys there too that we don't talk often, but I bet I could call Eric or Trevor and they'd pick up the phone and like we'd probably have a good conversation, even though I haven't talked to him in 7-8 years. Right.
Yeah.
And I was only there for a few months. Go back to Carbondale. Now I've got those 2 years of grad school, right? Okay. And I didn't really know why I was training, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost like Forrest Gump. He didn't know why he was running.
Yep.
He just felt like running, right? And talking about that flow state, I just loved finding that flow state.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was training, it was giving me that, like, this is cool, right? And so I just kept chasing that, like, intrinsic feeling of, like, I love this. This is fun. I'm having so much joy in my training. And a side effect of that was I got decent at exercise racing.
Yeah. That's such a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was okay at it. I was all right.
Yeah.
It was a side effect, though, right? Of, like, just the pure joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're super interested in CrossFit.
Yep.
You're going through your master's degree.
Yep.
What did you think about, like, the master's degree? Did you, like, was that something that you're like, I'm really glad I'm in this program?
Yeah. So I look back now at, like, the things that I learned in that program. There was a lot that I learned that is somewhat helpful today, but also, like, it was the perfect thing for that stage in my life. So even if it isn't super helpful today, like I said, it gave me the time to figure out what I was doing. And also I found a lot of joy in those classes and, like, the projects, because I was able to really develop what I wanted to and, like, study what I wanted to and push myself further. So in that moment, it was that perfect setting that I needed to kind of take that next step. So looking back, like, is it the most valuable? Do I wish I was not paying the bills still for those student loans? Yeah, sure, of course. But also, like, it was the perfect thing in that moment in my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Student loans suck.
Student loans do suck, but I guess I took them out, so
yeah, exactly.
I guess I got to pay them back.
I'm just glad I only have NDSU student loans. That's it.
Well, I only had SIU loans.
Okay.
But it was also undergrad and grad school. So
so I don't have Ohio State.
Oh, that's
because
right.
I was just assistantship, which is nice. But so you're going through your master's.
Yep.
You enjoy that. You're getting into exercise racing. Did you start competing while you were down there?
I did. Okay. So I wasn't, like, good at it initially, right?
Well, I've never been good at it, so I know what that's like.
You were okay. You were all right. We spent a lot of. We tried.
We tried.
We tried for you. You could run a lot farther than I ever could. So keep that in mind. Just like anything, and I'm kind of being a little over dramatic here, but, like, most things in my life specifically, like, I had to work really hard at it, right? And not, again, I know that sounds like over dramatic. I'm not trying to create some, like, sob story, but, like, I had to really work hard to be able to be a decent athlete, right? I'm not naturally strong, right? I wasn't naturally an endurance. I was a big kid, right? Like, I didn't have endurance. I wasn't very explosive. I wasn't very strong. Like, I didn't have any of those stereotypical things that your average athlete would have. And so, like, I had to really bust my butt. And I went from a very meh to, like, an okay person. And then in year 3, like, it made a jump to where, I was able to be a part of the regional team from our gym that went to the CrossFit regionals and competed. Like, and then from there moved up to Fargo and was still able to continue to develop and become a better athlete. So.
Okay. So now we're in Fargo.
Yeah, we moved to Fargo. We went from Southern Illinois, where winters were like 40 degrees.
Yep.
And for some unknown reason, I moved to Fargo, North Dakota.
How did you, like, get in touch with 701?
Yeah. So I'll never forget this. I was just looking for jobs, right? I'm coming up on the last semester of grad school. Got to figure out what's next, right? And so in January, I started applying for jobs. And I had 2 job interviews, right? I think it was back-to-back weekends. It might have been go, weekend off, go. But so it was either back-to-back or within 3 weeks, right? One trip was to Fargo, North Dakota.
Yep.
The other to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Okay. Yeah, very different, right?
And it was in the winter, wasn't it?
I came up, it would have been I think it was the last weekend in January.
The worst time.
The absolute worst time. dude, I didn't even own a winter coat, and I'm in Fargo, North Dakota.
Oh my God.
And yeah, that was nuts. So I went up there first and had the time of my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The person that picked me up from the airport, you know who it was?
Matt Bailey.
No.
I know. Okay.
Eric Crawl, who I
Oh,
still
yeah.
consider a very good friend,
Yeah.
right? Like, he and I just got together a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
He picks me up from the airport, takes me to the gym. And from the moment I was there, I think I was there for 3 days, right? I think I got there on maybe Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, and then I left on Sunday. The moment I got there, it was just the most unique, fun, welcoming experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
Right? I flew back and I'm like, oof, like, that was cold. One.
Yeah.
Like, what was that? Did I go to, was that still in the continental US? And two, like, man, I think I want to move to Fargo, North Dakota. Right? So then I flip around, go to Myrtle Beach, and it was an awful experience.
Really?
The guy was just like, he's not a good guy. And I knew within probably the first hour I was there, like, nope, I'm good.
What was that for a CrossFit gym?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Mind you, like, the reason I was looking for a CrossFit gym was because I was still in that stage of, I think I want to be in fitness, but also I still want to push this athlete side a little.
You're like,
bit.
I want to make it to the games.
No, I knew that was never going to happen.
Oh, okay,
like,
okay.
There might have been this little piece of me that was like, that'd be cool. But also I knew my limitations. I knew that, like, that wasn't realistic. It goes more back to, like, the intrinsic piece of, I have so much joy and passion in this.
Yeah.
And I want to become the best version of myself that I possibly can be in that realm.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
No, the Eric Hall would be a good welcoming committee.
He was a great welcoming committee. I mean, the first impression, here's this 6'5" guy who's just he's beefy.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was really big back then. Like, he was a big guy.
He was jacked.
Yep.
He still is. He's very
still
handsome,
jacked.
very handsome guy.
He leaned out a little bit.
Yeah. But, like, your first thought, oh, I step off a plane and here's this 6'5" guy. Is everybody in North Dakota this big? Oh, right?
Yeah.
Like, holy smokes. But yeah, he has a great welcoming committee.
Absolutely. And then I was just talking with somebody the other day, and Fargo is the perfect city if you're looking for just, like, a good time.
Yeah.
For, like, going out. In my opinion, I think it's the perfect town for, like, going out. And then if you want to do, if you have a pretty general life of where, like, you go work out and and that's about it.
Those 3.5 years, like, Macy and I talk about this all the time. Like, Fargo is our favorite place. I loved living in Fargo
because it's big
minus
enough to have all the things.
Yeah.
It's just as cold here, I feel like.
No.
Really?
No, it's not.
Okay.
No. Man, I moved to Fargo early April. And actually, I think we got to Fargo on my birthday. It was April 9th, right? And that next week, we had a blizzard.
Yeah.
There was like 2 feet of snow. And I'm like, maybe I made the wrong choice. Like, what? It's 80 degrees in Myrtle Beach right now. Yeah. What am I doing right now? So no, it's cold up there.
Well, it's definitely cold, but
we're not getting 2 feet of snow in April in the cities very often.
We don't get it very often in North Dakota.
Okay, but it happened the very first weekend.
First impression.
In North Dakota.
But, okay. So what we were saying is, like, Fargo's perfect.
Yep.
If you don't want mountains.
Yeah, I respect that.
Because, or, like, mountain activities. So, like, if you say, like, intense mountain biking or rock climbing or mountaineering, stuff like that. Yeah, or trees. But the things like, and so, but everything else is perfect. If you want, like, nice coffee, they have nice coffee. If you want, like, a really nice cocktail bar, they have it.
Yep.
If you want, like, a really nice workout facility, they have it.
Yeah.
Then if you want a nice sports team to go watch, like, NDSU is pretty good. It's not an Ohio State or it's not Alabama.
That's fair.
I mean, but it's still pretty
SIU
good.
did beat them in football 2 out of the last 3 games. So
wow.
And
I don't watch sports, so I have no idea.
Yeah, that's right.
but they
I
probably,
might actually be wrong on that. So no
they
one
probably
fact check
wouldn't
me.
beat the Buckeyes.
No,
so
they would not.
I'll go with Go Bucks.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I'll hold that alumni card. But both teams. But
Fair.
either way, it's a nice little big city.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of describing it.
Uh-huh.
It's like you said, it's big enough, but it's not
Okay.
too big.
So you start at 701.
CrossFit 701.
What do you think?
What did I think?
My first impression was like, this is my first time going there. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm never coming back here. It was the Open of 2015.
Yeah.
The first time I ever went there.
Yeah. So it's funny because when I look back at like now that I know what I know, like I maybe didn't do the greatest job when I first got to 701 because when I walked into that gym, it was a very competitive scene, right?
Yeah.
And it's my first professional job, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know what I don't know.
It's a pretty bold term for managing 701s in your first professional job.
The resume has to be it has to start at that point. So I'm calling it a professional
job. For sure.
But no, that's fair because there was a lot of goofing off. Right?
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of fun had. But no, it's looking back, like it was just a different focus of a facility compared to what it maybe should have been in that moment.
Yeah.
Which is why you experienced what you experienced, right? Very like you walked in, you're like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Who are these people, and why are they throwing weights around?
Yeah.
Maybe not the best way to build a business, but that's
Yeah.
okay. We'll talk about that later.
It's whatever.
You live and you learn.
You definitely learning experiences if you're running it. So you're in Fargo, and pretty shortly afterwards, you see a change in ownership.
Very quick.
What was that like?
Yeah, great question. So I got there in April, and I was approached in maybe late July, early August of like, hey, do you want to buy this gym? Not really. No, like I don't know any of these people. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm going to be here for a year, 5 years. Like I have no idea. Right. Thankfully, 3 people who I already knew who were coaches at the gym, bought it, and it was definitely a shift. The previous owner was in the gym a couple times per week. Kind of gave me very like, here's the direction, here's the specific tasks I need you to be doing. And when new ownership came in, they weren't from the fitness industry, right? They weren't necessarily even. Troy was business minded, but the other 2, it was their first time in business ownership. And so it took a little while to kind of figure out like the pulse there, right? To figure out, okay, what are our actual focuses? How do we grow this business? Like, what are we actually doing, right? So it was very unique, very different. But I mean, eventually we kind of found our pulse. There was definitely some differences in philosophies and like trying to figure out, what direction things were going. But like anything, like eventually you figure it out, you find your stride and run with it. So.
Okay, here's one. We'll go back like a couple months here, maybe around this exact time, because I was a member at this point for like a month, maybe.
Okay.
The old guy who did programming. Garrett.
Yep.
And his roast.
Yep.
That was my first event at 701.
Okay. Like the first social? Or
the first social event. What, like in your mind, you're running this gym, you're like, these people are insane or like these people are great? What are you thinking?
So you have to look at like the social dynamics of the gym at that point. There was a couple different like social circles, right? And I would say that like I fit more so within the group of there was a lot of like seniors at NDSU, grad school students, Eric Carl was in grad school, Macy, my lovely wife, right? Like she was a senior in school. Trista, like there was so many folks. I fit more so with that group initially. And that was like a more like seasoned, like my age now type group. And so I guess I don't remember a ton about that event specifically. I recall it, but
I think maybe it sticks out because it was the first thing I ever came to.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. But I don't necessarily remember that like good or I remember one thing that Garrett told me as he was leaving. He's like, because at this point, Macy and I had been dating for a while.
Okay.
And he's like, the show's yours now. Like, take it, run with it, man. And he's like, you've got a good girl there. Don't let her go. And like, those are the two things I remember Garrett telling me
There you go.
on that last night. So
Okay.
I tried to do both.
Yeah.
I'm still married to the girl. So thank you for your advice, Garrett. I appreciate you if you're watching.
I highly doubt he's going to be watching this.
I'm gonna tag him on the video, give him the specific timestamp and say, Garrett, watch this.
This point right here. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So how long were you at? When did you leave 701?
It would have been late spring, early summer of
17?
17. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. 'Cause
Yeah.
you were there for a while, and I like when I look back at my undergrad at 701, it feels like you were there the whole time for a majority of it.
Most of it, yeah.
But obviously it wasn't the whole time. But when you were getting ready to leave 701, were you thinking I need to move up in the CrossFit space, or were you thinking that CrossFit's going to be my path for like kind of ever?
Great question. There are 3 moments in my life where I've had the most growth. Okay, like it's time to grow up, or it's time to sharpen your skill set. It's time to be more than what you currently are right now, Ryan. The moment that I knew I was going to ask Macy to marry me, and that that whole like. I proposed in April. We got married in September. So like that whole 6 months plus a few months afterwards, the moment that we found out that Addie was on the way, my little girl that's now 3.5, and then the moment that I knew Bear was on the way, my 3.5, almost 4-month-old little boy. And so I realized I was going to ask Macy to marry me. It would have been, so if we moved in 2015?
Yes.
So it would have been the
moved.
fall of 2014. I realized I was going to do it. Right. And I even bought a ring.
Wait, no. 2017 is when you.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You moved too far going 2015.
Yes.
Okay.
Dates, numbers.
Yeah.
They're tough. Yeah. So I realized it would have been the fall of 2016. I even bought a ring that fall, and I held on to it for like 4 or 5 months waiting for the perfect time. And it was like a couple weeks before we actually moved.
Okay.
So yeah, that was like, I realized I needed to grow up, and that even though 701, it was a professional experience.
Yeah.
Darn it. It
was a job. It was
a job. I got paid for that. Exactly. But it was time for me to grow up.
Yeah.
It was time for me to start figuring out how to actually find a profession. And a job opportunity in St. Cloud was going to allow me to have a more professional experience within the fitness space, and also open more doors for other opportunities.
Okay.
It also was an opportunity for Macy, who she's a social worker. It was an opportunity for her to go to grad school at St. Cloud State to push herself further professionally as well.
So win-win for both of you.
Win-win. Okay. Let's move a couple hours south.
Yeah. Was that a pretty easy decision for the two of you?
No.
Okay.
No. So I also have to credit Macy. There's been a couple times in our relationship where she's just had unrelenting faith and trust in me. And this was one of those moments. So it was between moving to the cities or to St. Cloud. And I had job interviews in both. And walking away from St. Cloud, ironically, just like 701, I went to St. Cloud first. And then I came down to the cities for a job interview. And the moment I left St. Cloud, I called Macy and I was like, we're going to go to St. Cloud. I was like, I'm still going to go through this job interview. Yeah. But we're probably moving to St. Cloud. She really wanted to move to the cities, but she trusted me. And here we are, right?
Yeah.
So it was a big moment of trust, but the opportunities I was afforded in St. Cloud, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. So you got to see a big business in St. Cloud.
It did.
For a big business in terms of the CrossFit space.
Yeah. And even more than just the CrossFit, right? Like I got to understand what an entrepreneur actually was, right? Like and I guess that's not fair because your brother-in-law, like he's one of my motivation.
Yes.
Like he is a huge inspiration to me. I just don't think I was ready in my like where I was at in life to actually understand what an entrepreneur was. So I was able to better understand and learn what that meant.
Well, with a move, with getting married.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. It was more of like the
switches.
phase. And now I look back again, like reflectively, like I probably should have learned more from Troy when I was in Fargo, but here we are, right?
Yeah.
So St. Cloud, yeah, I was able to actually experience like an entrepreneurial business, right? We didn't just have a gym. We also had the Granite Games, right?
Yeah.
We had a consulting company, right? Like there was more to it than just a gym.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know how much you want to focus on like that gym,
Yeah.
but like in that time, you were there for like less than 2 years, correct?
No, it was
Or around 2 years?
no, it was more than that. Because it would have been 3 years total.
Okay.
Because when I got there, I had 3 full years, or was it 4? I think 4 full years of the Granite Games.
Okay.
So it would have been 2017, 2018, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it was at least 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what are some of the biggest
I
things
should
that
have studied
you
my
learned?
own resume before this.
Nah, you're good.
What's the
Nobody's
biggest
gonna
thing?
fact check you.
Good.
Maybe
Probably.
maybe Kava.
She will.
Yeah.
That's okay. What was the biggest thing I learned there?
Yeah.
The biggest moments of growth are in times of adversity.
Yeah.
And this is something that I give credit to John Swanson. He
Yeah.
taught me this lesson during the Granite Games, the 2 weeks of the actual championship event, literally the most stressful 2 weeks of your life, right? But it was also the moment where our team became the closest and we worked seamlessly. And the event every single year went awesome,
Yeah.
right? And you're working 70, 80, 90 hours a week, getting that event prepared, running the event, and then finishing it. But if you look every single one of those events before and after, every single person grew exponentially during that time.
Yeah.
So that I credit, like that's the biggest lesson I learned when I'm in those moments of adversity. Even today, if I'm going through a really tough time, my mind switches to what am I supposed to be learning in this moment? One, put your head down, shut up, get to work,
Yeah.
do what needs to be done, which is also just kind of something like philosophically I've always done. But two, okay, what am I supposed to be learning from this moment? What areas am I specifically growing as a human or as a professional or as a husband or whatever other role that adversity is presenting?
Okay. No, it's, the things that stress you the most and push you the most is like what's going to develop you the most, right? And I have 2 things that I would think about. One is the Matahe. And I was listening to Goggins' podcast with Rogan the other day. And he was saying that what you learn and what you gain from an ultra, maybe physically it takes away from like your overall years of living because it wrecks your body a little bit. But you gain 7 years of life experience.
Yeah.
Because what you push yourself to, so many people will never get to that point. And the things you learn about yourself, you'll experience nature, all these things. And he said, when I'm doing a 100-mile race, I gain 7 years of life. In experience. And so like I've learned a lot about myself since running, I would say, in general. But the second one would be, you talked about 80, 90-hour weeks. Leading up to it. Every week I worked in DC for the 2 summers I was there. Between Tuesday to Saturday was over 90 hours.
Jeez.
And especially the first summer, like we were 6 a.m. to 1 a.m. Every day for Tuesday to Saturday. And so it's like there's so much growth in that though, once you get through.
There was a year, I think it was 2018, where we had an obstacle course on the field. Ask Jared Gallus about this.
He was telling
when
me
you see
about
him.
this.
Yep. And we weren't able to get on the football field until it was like 9-10 o'clock. Right?
Yeah.
There's this 20-yard by like 20-yard obstacle course that you have to build. We didn't finish that thing until 4 a.m. Guess who had to be back on site by 7 a.m. because the event started the next day, right?
Yeah.
And that was on Friday, right?
We
got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, right? So yeah, you're absolutely right. Like those moments of I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I can't even tell you which direction is up, but then you get locked in and going back to that concept of like flow, right? You get in those moments and you just go with it. Like there's times where I think about the Granite Games or, even when I was exercise racing or like even in my job now, in my business now, where I hit a state of flow and you've like finished that moment and you're like, wait, what just happened? But also you were performing at such a high level because you're in that state. And like, that's just part of that adversity growth cycle.
Do you crave that?
Yeah. It's fun.
Well, and I was thinking about this when I moved back to Fargo from Columbus. Well, during Columbus as well. But my last semester in Fargo.
Yeah.
I student taught. I worked at Red Lobster. I coached CrossFit. And I coached track.
Okay.
All in that spring semester.
It's a lot.
The entire time.
Yeah.
Track wasn't the entire semester, but
yeah,
the other three were. And I was in a flow state for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And then I went right to DC and I was in the flow state for every week of working there.
Yeah.
And then I kind of like settled down after my first semester of grad school. And then COVID hit and I had nothing to do.
Yeah.
But I was like, I craved it.
Yeah. You do to a certain extent, right? And I think that in those moments where like you start to become so comfortable, you start to crave it more and more. And that's like, all right, now how do I create some false stress, right? Like how do I create those opportunities to chase that? Like that's why I started my business right now, right? I've been toying with this idea for a year or so.
Yeah.
And I kept like, I had to get through the birth of our son and like adapt to that new level of stress. But now I look and like, all right, I'm ready for what's next, right? Like I need to challenge myself. I need to push myself. I need to grow. I need to go through a season of, I don't know what I'm doing.
And that's B3 Systems, right?
And that's B3 Systems. Okay. Yeah. That's my business.
And that's not you don't do that full time yet, right?
Part-time for now.
Okay.
Long term, I'd love for it to become a bigger thing, but I also find a lot of joy in my full-time job as well, right? And there's certainly some crossover, but I'm also a business consultant for Anytime Fitness franchise owners. So I work with about 107, 108 clubs spread across Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas.
Yeah.
Basically just working on profitability, right? Like how can I help you get your club operations to maximize results? How can I help you create efficiencies? How can I help you adapt new programs? How can I help you as an owner get to the next level or to wherever you want to go?
Yeah.
Right.
Is that Anytime Fitness?
Anytime Fitness, yes.
Is that something you do on your own that you like marketed and started, or was that through something else?
No, that's through Anytime Fitness corporate.
Okay.
So yeah, I work directly for the corporate office.
Okay.
And then work with the independent franchise owners.
And that's your full time.
That's my full time gig. B3 is just part time right now. Yep.
Cool. The idea of business development, training, leadership.
Yep.
Is that what you're interested in?
Yeah. It's interesting to see. I love fitness. I love sport still, right? Like it's always going to be a passion of mine. I mean, shoot, before you got here, like I'm watching some random World Cup soccer game, right? Morocco and whoever they were playing. Cause like, I just love sport. Like I love that thrill in that environment. And I think I'll always have some activity within that professionally to some extent. But also a lot of my passions have moved away from just fitness and exercise to more of leadership development, like helping people in other capacities.
Yeah.
Right. I think one of the things I learned while I was in St. Cloud was I can't help everybody. And that also helped me just transformatively looking like, okay, but who can I help? Who is that group that I can best serve?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a constant growth pattern of like, who are these individuals? Who should I be serving right now? And right now in this state of life, I love working with business owners. It's so fun to me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you ever get, because you've never owned a business until now, correct?
B3, right? First one.
Do you ever get like pushback that you've never owned something yourself?
Not yet.
Okay.
I mean, it certainly could come up. But to be honest, the experiences I had in St. Cloud,
Yeah.
I was more of an intrapreneur, right? Not an entre.
Yeah.
Like
I gotcha.
I didn't own it, but I owned my own business within the business.
Okay.
Developing the throwdown, like the affiliate program, right? Of course, there were team members that pushed and helped along the way, but like that kind of became my project. That was my focus.
The winter throwdown? Or
So it became like a seasonal event where I was working with anywhere from 40 to up to 80 different affiliates across North America, running these local events.
Yeah.
Right. That was my first exposure of really working with business owners. And that's where I really found that passion that led to where I am now.
That's
And there's some other events and things there too.
one of the few team comps I've done. I never
Say that
liked,
again?
so that was one of the few team comps I did.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I never liked competing in CrossFit.
It's okay. It's not for everybody.
Not for everybody. I realized that like probably my junior year of high school or college. I was like, I like competing, but I was like, this is not something I'm all in on.
Yeah.
And so I'm never going to be the best at it.
So it's funny you say that because now that's where I'm at. Like
Yeah.
I won't ever do a CrossFit event again unless like Addie grows up and like gets into it, or like Bear gets into it or something, like,
and then you're
and they're
Milo.
like, Dad, can you do it? And then I'm stuck. Right.
Yeah.
But like, I don't focus on it. I don't actively train on it. It's not something that fuels me or pushes me now. And I don't like to do things that I am not all in on.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree. I still, I haven't worked out at the gym in like 3 weeks, but
It doesn't show. You look great.
I run a lot.
I know.
I run a lot and do a lot of jiu-jitsu.
You run plenty to be good for a while.
And I have a kettlebell at home that I like to use.
Nice.
But that's about it. I want to get back to it because my knees are atrophying because I don't squat enough.
Build those bad boys back up.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they're gonna break on trail.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was doing the knees over toes for a while, pretty religiously for like 2.5, 3 months.
Okay.
But and it got way better. And jiu-jitsu is not nice to your knees.
No.
And so I definitely need to work on it.
Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea.
But I love just the general fitness of it, of the CrossFit, and just working out in general. And I found that what I really like is just moving.
Yeah.
And when you start CrossFit, it's like, oh, I got to move in all these different ways.
Yep.
I just like moving and testing my body in different ways.
Yeah.
And so obviously doing it multiple ways now. But
Yeah.
I think it's super fascinating. So, well, let's get back to you. You are running the winter throwdown.
Yep.
You're in St. Cloud still.
Yep.
What did like wrapping up at Fast Factory look like?
Yeah. That was I would say probably the toughest stage of my life to this point.
Okay.
So last Granite Games 2019, right? We find out that the Granite Games is going to be sold soon after we finish that event, right? Just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, to be honest, a lot of chaos. Also, keep in mind, this is June into July. Addie, my first child, is coming in August.
Okay.
Right. And so I told you earlier, like there's 3 moments in my life. This is time number 2 where I saw so much stress, anxiety, but also looking back, growth. Right. So in all of that uncertainty, thankfully, I had carved myself into such a unique position with the throwdowns, with the affiliate program, that I was a necessary piece to continue on, right? And so one by one, I see my teammates, you know, that they take other jobs, they go other directions because this company has now sold, but there was still a need for me.
Yeah.
I felt because this affiliate program was my baby, I was all in on it still. And it was really, really tough. It sucked to lose Clara, to lose Dom, to lose Adam, and those relationships, the people that I had worked intimately with on a regular basis. It really hurt to lose them and not have those connections.
Yeah.
But I still owed it to these 75, 80 affiliate owners to give them the very best product I possibly could. And I knew that contractually, we had 3 events that were going until March of 2020. Okay. And so I knew in my heart, like, I've got to finish this thing out, and then I can look at other opportunities. But I got to, like, I owe it to these people.
Yeah.
Because I'm the one that sold it. I'm the one that promised them that they were going to get results. I'm going to make sure that they get results. And they did, right?
So this is 2019 to 2020.
2019 into 2020.
Okay.
Our last event, March 14th of 2020.
I was in California at that time.
Yeah. That was messed up.
Yeah.
It was weird, right? March 14th, March 16th, everything closes down.
Yeah, that was a wild time for me because I just distinctly remember. I don't know if you ever heard of Goggins Challenge, 4x4x48. Run 4 miles
I've heard of
every 4 hours for 2 days.
Okay.
So I'm doing this. I'm finishing the first chapter of my thesis.
Okay.
I'm in Columbus, and I have to go meet with my advisors because I was co-advised at Ohio State. I go meet with my 2 advisors, turn it in. They kind of go through it, and we're sitting at this desk, 3 of us. It was spring break for us.
Okay.
'Cause this is a Monday. Tuesday, I'm flying to California.
Okay.
But we're sitting in spring break, and like, it's so weird. It's super nice. Nobody's on campus right now.
Yeah.
Because parking was super easy. They're like, oh, it's kind of cool not having anybody here.
Yeah.
I'm like, did you hear about this coronavirus thing? Had half our conversation was based around this.
Yeah.
And then next day, flew to California. First night we were there, we went out to eat. And then the next day we went and toured Golden Gate Bridge.
Yep.
And by the time we were there for, I think, 4 or 5 nights.
Okay.
By the time we left California, we would go down to like the wharf. We were in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever been.
I have not. But
Okay.
I know what you're talking about.
The wharf is like one of the main attractions there. And there was nobody.
Yeah.
And then we were talking to an Uber driver, and he was like, it's a 30-minute wait between rides.
Okay.
Because there's nobody here. And he was like, it's the
no
weirdest
one's driving
thing
anymore.
And no, it's not nobody's driving. The drivers are still there. Nobody wants a ride.
Got it.
And he's like, usually there's a wait
for him
list.
there was 30 minutes between.
Yeah.
Got
and so
it.
he's like, it's a 30-minute wait to get your Uber, is what it used to be.
And now he's waiting 30 minutes.
Exactly.
Oh man.
And so it was insane being there. And then we were driving over to Berkeley on like the tram system they have there. It's called the BART.
Okay.
And we saw the cruise ship that was docked.
Okay.
That had like all the COVID passengers. The cruise ship. Yeah. And then we see like, all the people are like on there, and we get off the BART, and then there's some news thing that pops up that all the passengers were released. It's like we're in the city and we're like, oh my God, we're getting COVID.
Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
Get home as fast as we can.
But it was really weird being there.
Yeah.
And then
I believe it.
It was like super stressful.
Yeah. I mean, I was in a job in downtown Minneapolis when everything happened too, right?
So you had moved at this point.
So yeah. So I knew with hard turn here, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But when we went from, I knew the affiliate program was coming to its end, right? And I knew that the company had sold. Like, it's not gelling with this new company. Like, I'm not getting any feedback, or like, it just doesn't feel right anymore. Right?
Yeah.
I knew it was time for something else. And so we decided, I got a job offer with as a director in a director position for the YMCA in downtown Minneapolis.
Okay.
And I was in that role for 18 months. I knew it wasn't a long-term thing,
Yeah.
but it was what I needed in that time, right? It was a stepping stone. It was secure employment while I knew that the current spot I was at wasn't right? And so, yeah, I took that job. We moved, I guess I started it in early February, and we didn't move to this house until May. So there was 2 months or so, 3 months or so where I was driving down to Minneapolis every single day from Sauk Rapids. So like load up, drive an hour and 15 minutes to work, go work for 8 hours, 9 hours, drive an hour 15 back.
That's a rough day.
There was one day where we had a snowstorm. That hour 15 turned into 4 hours.
Oh my God.
It was rough. Yeah.
And driving between St. Cloud and like Albertville is always an awful stretch.
Keep in mind too, there is a 6-month-old at home too.
Yeah.
So God bless my wife for stepping up and taking care of Addie in those first few months. But yeah, then we moved to Andover and things just got a lot easier. Downtown Minneapolis wasn't easier. That was a very tough time with like COVID going on and everything else. So yeah, that wasn't
A lot going on.
a lot going on.
Yeah.
A lot going on. Yeah.
We had some riots in Columbus, but nothing like here.
Yeah. And granted, that was later. That was like
Midsummer-ish. Early summer, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a difficult time, right? Like,
Yeah.
And again, as I look back at those years, like there was definitely growth there personally, professionally, but like that wasn't the role for me, and that's okay, right?
All right,
it was
so
a stepping stone.
Well, we'll kind of jump forward, but I want to hear, like, what was the best part of working? What'd you learn? What'd you grow from?
At the Y?
Yeah.
I think there's a couple things. One, just personally, I learned a lot about myself. Again, we talked earlier about like in those really difficult times, in those moments of stress, you figure out more about yourself, right? And so I learned how to lead people, right?
Yeah.
I learned how to, there's so much uncertainty. I was on that job for 5-6 weeks and I had to make phone calls to let people know that they were furloughed, right? Or laid off, right?
Oh, shit.
I also, like, if you were to talk to those people, like I did what I could to still support them and take care of them. I was also the person that got to call some of those people back and welcome them back into our facility and let them know, like, all right, your job is back, right? But also then I had to guide them through that period where we lost half to 2/3 of our staffing, right? And we had to now operate on so much less than what we were used to, right? And so like I had to lead those individuals through those uncertain moments where we got closed again for another 2-3 weeks, right? And I had to make that phone call of, hey, you're furloughed again. Hopefully it's short term this time, right? And so I think in that moment I learned.
When did that happen?
It would have been so it would have been in the next fall, right?
Oh,
so
really?
COVID hit. We were able to reopen fitness facilities in, it was like June, July.
Okay.
We got back in, and then it would have been right around Thanksgiving, where it closed again for 2 or 3 weeks in the state of Minnesota, and then we reopened. So it was a short time, but looking back, I learned how to truly be like a leader in those times, and focus more on like the people, right?
Yeah.
To like, I care about you. I'm not just worried about what you produce for this company or that you're helping, me get further or helping this company get further. Like, I want you to be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, at this point I was coaching in Columbus. And we were closed down for 3 months.
Yeah.
I believe 4 months, maybe. It was very similar to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Very similar, like, mindset in the city and whatnot as the Twin Cities. It's actually a very similar feel. Like, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, are very similar to Columbus, I think. But much warmer.
Yeah.
Much warmer. Like, it only gets, like, first year there, it never got below 10 degrees.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
That was very nice.
That sounds really nice.
We had snow for 3 days.
That sounds nice.
Yeah. But that's a weird time to, like, and as long as I was in Columbus, we were required to coach with a mask.
Okay.
it was actually a week after I left that was kind of done away with.
Yeah.
But no, it was a weird time to coach, and then I remember getting COVID.
Yeah.
And I was super sick Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
But I hadn't like thought of. I was like, oh, it's just a flu. I'm fine.
Yeah.
And this is like November of. It's like a Thanksgiving after.
Okay.
COVID.
2020 or 2021?
2020.
Okay.
Thanksgiving. It's the week before. I was like, I'm staying in Columbus. I was going to go see some friends for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Do a Friendsgiving. And then Monday, Tuesday, I coach 6 classes between those 2 days.
Okay.
And then Wednesday, I was like, I got this really strong smelling soap. Can't smell it.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, I got COVID. And then
yikes.
I was the only person the gym ever announced as having COVID. And like, you should be like aware that Coach Ty had COVID. But I coached more than I think mostly anybody else did there.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. But I coached at least 10 classes a week there.
Okay.
And I think we offered like 25.
Okay.
And it was very similar to 701. We had like 12 coaches.
Got it.
So
there was a lot.
Yeah. But when the thing was sent out, and I got like so many texts, and like I remember having a pivotal conversation with a group of guys there that kind of like solidified me as friends with them.
Okay.
So it was very clicky.
Okay.
There, very clicky, and it became part of this other group of friends there.
Okay.
On one of those days, we talked for an hour in like the waiting room, and then like, son of a bitch, Ty, like we become friends, and you give us COVID. But nobody.
Thanks for that. Some
nobody
friend
got COVID because of me, so it's nice
that you know of.
that I know of.
Yeah.
But which was good. But yeah, it was a weird time to be like in the gym space.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, gyms were hurt so badly, right?
Yeah.
Not just financially, 100%, yes.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that while most of the industry has rebounded, like there's still areas that are still struggling, that are still trying to get back to where they were, right? Like, it just presented so many unique challenges. Business owners had to find other ways to make means, and it was tough. It was really tough.
Yeah.
Specifically on the fitness industry, and yeah, there's a lot there to unpack too. Another day for that discussion.
I'm sure you've experienced a lot with it with Anytime Fitness stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
100% yes. I've been in this role for a little shy of 2 years, right? And when I first came into this role, it would have been early summer of or late spring of 2021, right? And at that point, people were still like struggling. And now, fast forward 19, 20 months later, and like people are getting back. They're getting closer. But like I said, I can think of one owner that I work with specifically that, COVID hit. He had to close his gym. He had to go find another job, right?
Yeah.
He had been working full time in his gym, and now he's out doing other things, working in oil fields, and hires somebody else to manage the gym for him. When they were finally able to reopen, manager caused a ton of troubles, and like he's still trying to get back to where his gym was pre-COVID because of just some of those other circumstances. Damn. Yeah, it happened to a lot of people, a lot of good people.
So I think we kind of skipped over something there. So now we're like in an Anytime Fitness discussion.
Yeah, sure.
But there's a pivotal moment of your daughter being born.
Yeah.
In the first, like, so kind of over the time you were at, we kind of talked about like what the best things you learned from like, the YMCA job already. What were like in the first like year and a half? Like, what did you learn most about you and Macy, when you had your daughter?
Yeah. It's funny because I told this to your brother-in-law and sister last night when they were over for dinner, right? Kids are the greatest blessing I've ever had in my life. And I'm so thankful for both of them, even though they drive me nuts sometimes. Yeah. I love them to death. But they have made Macy and I so much closer. They've made our marriage that much stronger.
Was it stronger than getting Nala?
Well, okay, so Nala, what you need to understand about Nala is I got Nala, my dog. It would have
Should've
been
stayed.
pretty early in Macy and I's relationship.
Yeah.
And so I still joke to this day, Ty, like, Nala was my first love.
Yeah.
Like, Nala's my girl, right? So it was kind of Nala and I before it was Macy and I.
Okay, so maybe Simba.
Simba's an idiot. If anybody's looking for a dog, give me a call. He's one of the worst decisions we've made. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. Kind of, sort of.
Kind of.
He's a big doofus, and I love him. I have to love him.
Yeah.
And he's a doofus.
But Nala's your love.
Nala's my girl.
Yeah.
Nala will always be my girl. Yeah.
So like brought you guys closer together.
Yep.
Do you think it just matured you like instantly?
Yeah, pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think priorities continued to shift. I started to better understand what my values actually were. Right? So like here's a perfect example. We talked about when I was an intern for that minor league baseball team.
Yeah.
Right? And I understood at that moment that my core values were I want to have a really solid family relationship, right? Like I want a loving wife, I want children, and I want to be able to raise a family, right?
Yeah.
And I recognized at that point that it wasn't possible in that industry. And so fast forward, Addie was like that first moment where it's like, oh, right? Like I thought I loved Macy before this, and now I realize how much I actually did love her.
Yeah.
And was going to continue to grow in that relationship. And also like I was starting to fulfill that value of mine of now I've got this other responsibility, this added layer of this child's mine, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm now responsible for this kid, and I better make sure that I do everything I can to make sure that, you know, she has what she needs. She is raised in a good home, that she, you know, is those values that I have are passed down to her the best that I can.
Yeah. That's cool.
It is cool.
It's cool learning experience.
Very transformative.
Yeah.
Right? Like, all right, now I'm a parent. Now I got to take care of this kid.
Yeah.
At least for 18 years.
You can't just like put, it's not like, no, you can just put water out and food. And
Right.
They'll be good for a while.
Right. Let them out let the kids outside for a little bit, come back inside, right?
Yeah.
Food's on the table. No, it's not like that. Don't do that, Ty.
I'm not there yet.
Okay.
I got time.
You got time.
Yeah. But let's get to the Anytime Fitness now.
Sure.
I feel like that's a good, we're over an hour and a half.
I know.
feel
It's
so.
it's 2:00, man.
Yeah. So I don't want to keep you from your family for too long.
No, you're good. Addie's still napping.
Okay.
She should be napping till like 3. My concern is we said this is going to be what? The number one listened podcast episode on Spotify ever.
Okay.
So time-wise, like what's the average podcast?
For me?
Yeah.
Between like an hour and 15.
Perfect. We're blowing it out of the water, right?
So I think we talked about Anytime Fitness a little bit already.
Cool.
And probably some of the more impactful things you've done there.
Yep.
Is helping them get out of the COVID era.
Yep.
If there's more that you think that needs to be added to it, for sure add to it. But
Sure.
I want to discuss B3 systems.
Yep.
And I want to discuss your outdoor adventures that we skipped past earlier.
Okay.
So you choose which one's first.
Because I think the adventures would be a good like exclamation mark, right? Because it's like that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
And also the Anytime story kind of slides into B3 to a certain extent.
Okay.
So
Let's
easier
do that.
transition there.
Let's do that.
Right.
So you started your own business.
I started my own business. Yeah. Backtrack a little bit. While I was in St. Cloud, we used a business operating system, basically that just helped us create some alignment, right? Like basically made communication a lot easier, made priorities a lot easier. We were able to make decisions within our business a lot smoother. And I found so much passion in being a part of that leadership team and going to those meetings, right? It was quarterly meetings, and looking back, like, of course I enjoyed my role and that job and like that experience, but those were so fun for me.
Yeah.
It was eye-opening, right?
Yeah.
And I found so much value in that I took a lot of those tools and used some of them for my team at the YMCA, and saw how impactful they continued to be there. And now that I'm actually working with business owners at any time, I took even more of those concepts and started applying them more from a less from a in the business to more of an implementer, like facilitator type role. And so fast forward a little bit, I had the opportunity to, I pitched this idea to one of my owners. He was talking about his real estate businesses and insurance business, and on one of our calls, and I had the opportunity to go work with them. Just through a very similar structure to what we had used, and it was such a great experience. So those were my first clients. Still working with them, and I saw how much value I came from those opportunities or those meetings, that I started, I'm going to continue to develop this more and more and more. Right. And so now I decided, you know what, it worked for them. And talking about that flow state when I'm with those folks, it's constant flow state. I have so much fun. And while it's exhausting, it's also exhilarating. I look back every single time I'm down there. It's like, man, I don't know what just happened, but that was awesome. And I know my clients are getting movement and they're growing. Their businesses are more successful. I decided, let's do this. I'm going to move this thing forward. And here we are. B3 Systems, baby. Let's go.
HQ we're in right now.
This is, this nice little 12 by 12 room is HQ.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's dope.
It's nice.
What was that moment like when you started your business? Like you officially started it, you have a name to it.
Yeah. So your brother Troy helped me name it.
Yeah.
So thank you, Troy.
Where'd the B3 come from?
Building better business. Okay. Building better business systems, right? It's a system.
Yeah.
And so
is it like a software, or is it just like
no
kind of mentality, structure, development?
It's a structure and system. Like,
okay.
Don't think computer systems. Think like, I need to do these things, right?
Ideas, strategies.
Sort of, right? So when I work with clients, the very first thing I'm going to focus on is let's create clarity, right? Typically when I start working with clients, they are struggling to get the movement, their business to continue to grow. They're maybe losing control of their business. They don't know where things are at. They're not able to make sound decisions. And so we're going to start with, okay, here's the foundational tools. I need you to understand who's responsible for what. I need you to understand what your actual priorities are. And I need you to understand how to make good decisions. Okay, so let's develop tools around those three specific things.
Okay.
After that, then let's start looking at what direction do you want this company actually to go, right? Like, what are we building towards? So often entrepreneurs have this in their mind and then they don't actually communicate that to the business. Then 2 or 3 years later, they're like, well, how did I end up here? This isn't the direction I wanted to go. So let's get the vision actually clarified and documented. Let's talk about what type of culture you want. What are your core values within this business? And then let's strategize, right? All right. If this is your vision, this is where you're going 5-10 years down the road. How are we going to get there? What are the milestones along the way, right? The base camps, right? Like, I need to get to this one, and then I get to this one. And then from there, it's really just working. Awesome. Here's what you accomplished. Where do we go now? Or we didn't accomplish this. How do we refocus? How do we reprioritize and go make sure it happens, right? So it really just comes down to, let's create some structure. Let's help you regain control, right? Let's understand the vision. What direction are we going as a business? And then let's strategize. Let's figure out how to actually make it happen.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Do you like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so much fun. Like I said, I have so much passion for helping those business owners, and it's every single time it's just fun to walk out of there knowing that they have clarity. They have everything that they need for the next 30, 60, 90 days. Now it's up to them, right?
There you go.
Go produce.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's super cool. We'll clip this.
Sure.
And you can have that for like promotional.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. So I do want to get to your outdoor adventures.
Yeah, let's do it.
How do we segue into that? Actually, what's a segue into it? What is the one particular story that you were thinking of? Because there's obviously something that you're like, there's big things happening that we didn't talk about? What's like the number one thing?
Honestly, it was a whole summer out in Colorado.
Okay.
Because and here's where it came up. We were talking about college years, right?
Yeah.
And we were jumping from like thing to thing, and it's mostly professionally focused, but also like you talked about, those college years are also meant to be fun, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I spent some time out in Colorado as a day camp counselor, running around with fourth and through sixth graders for 35 hours a week. But as a 21, 22-year-old, or I guess I was 20, 21, like, you only are responsible for these kids for 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
What else am I going to do with the rest of my life while I'm around mountains? I'm going to go explore, right?
Yeah.
And so during that time, like, there was, I can think of 4 separate excursions where we did like massive hikes, right?
Okay.
There was one where we did 4 peaks in a day, slid down a glacier to cut off like 2 miles of the hike to get back.
Yep.
There was one where we started on one side of the Rocky Mountain National Park and hiked all the way to another, like to the other side. There was one where we did the 2 tallest peaks in the same day.
You ever been like up to Emerald Lake?
Yeah.
In Rocky Mountain?
Yeah.
I have a picture I should show you. Yeah,
Okay.
so I was there 2 summers ago.
Yep.
now. And it was actually right after my first Mata Hay attempt. I could barely walk up the park. Like,
Yeah.
hiking was awful. I couldn't wear shoes yet.
Okay.
Because the blisters were so bad. I had to wear
believe that.
Birks. But one of my friend's dads, he used to live in Colorado and like hiked one of the massive spires there.
Okay.
And I gotta show you that. But continue on.
So Emerald, I'm trying to think what peaks that bounces up to.
So there's like 3 peaks that are like right at the top of Emerald Lake
Okay.
that you can see in it, and it's like one tall spire. I don't know what it's called.
I gotta look that up. That
Yeah.
might have. It's been 10 years, but like that might have been one of the peaks. But yeah. So there was 3 of them. The other one we did 3 peaks in a day as well. So like,
Yeah.
those were such fun experiences. But also talking about like that flow state during that summer, like that's something that I chased. That's something that I craved of like, I'm in this zone. We might have stepped out on this trail at 2 a.m. in the morning, but like I'm getting to the top of that dang mountain. Like I'm going to get there.
Don't you think the flow state is so much easier to get into on long cardio? And that's what I like about running.
No.
Is I hit the flow state almost every day.
I believe it. Like I can understand that.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we were in Utah for
Yep.
the university weightlifting?
Yep.
Right. I was in flow state. Right.
Yep.
Like you're going out on stage, you only get 6 total lifts.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was in flow state that entire time. Right. And I know that you could tell when I was in it.
Oh
right?
yeah. Like I remember. I remember your competition mindset, whether you were competing or you were coaching.
Yeah.
And they're definitely different.
Yeah.
But you're still in flow either way. Like I remember, I think for both opens I did with you, I was your judge for a majority of them.
Yeah.
And you had you completely flipped the switch when you competed.
Yep.
You don't talk to you before you compete.
Yep.
And then I always had to take off your wrist wraps, and you just squirming and like squealing because you're like and you're like almost crying. It seemed like, and then I distinctly remember like one open. It was my first open. I remember in 16.
Okay.
Because I remember seeing you compete, and I was like kind of like inspired by it. I thought it was really cool how hard you went.
Sure.
And then I also remember meeting Gabe for the first time.
Okay.
Gabe's my now boss, for some of you people who don't know.
Sure.
And I met Mari at the same time. Gabe was throwing up out of his nose. And it was 16-1.
You're not giving a good picture of this experience at all.
But it was 16-1 overhead lunges and chest burpee over bar and chest to bar.
Okay. I couldn't have told you that.
It was an awful first workout. And then the next day, we went and judged the Ole competition in Kindred.
Okay. I remember that.
Yeah. It was awful.
I was pretty rough that day.
I remember like not being able to sit.
I remember that. That was a long day.
Yeah. Those were so boring.
A long day of watching inexperienced high school kids try to lift That was rough.
It was very rough.
It was rough.
It never got better.
No.
I did like several of those meets.
Thank you, Roy, for helping those children learn how to lift. But oof.
Number one fan. He'll definitely hear that. So
I love Papa Roy.
yeah.
I love Papa Roy. He's the best.
Yeah. He's probably got more shout outs on this podcast.
I can't forget Mama D too.
Yeah.
She's a sweetheart. Right.
For sure.
Papa Roy is only great because of Mama D. Right. Behind every good man, there's a great woman.
Mm-hmm. What we could probably what else about that summer was like so great that you were chasing?
It's just the experiences.
Yeah.
Right. I think part of who I am is like we talked about with the CrossFit stuff or the baseball stuff, or even to a certain extent like some of my job stuff. Like I know I'm mostly intrinsically motivated, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's at times it's really tough for other people to motivate me, because there's just like, I know what I want. Like I want these specific things, right? And so that summer, looking at like, I was just there to experience, to have fun, and like push myself to do things that were so uncommon and unfamiliar to me. And so yeah, like. There's a million different stories. Like I can think of the time where the one where we did 4 peaks, right? I told this story to Troy and Michaela last night. My buddy Anderson and Lance and I were hiking. We get like 10, 15 yards. We're on the 4th peak, and we get like 10, 15 yards from a pack of bighorn sheep, and never realized because we're exhausted, our heads are down, until my buddy Anderson's like, guys, stop. Why are we stopping, Anderson? Like, what's happening? And then you look up, like, oh, that's why, right? So like that was a cool thing.
Yeah.
I think about like we borrowed lunch trays from the cafeteria so that we could take them on the hike, so we could slide down that glacier, and that was a blast, right? That lasted for like all of 45 seconds, but that was so fun.
Yeah. But it probably cut off so much time.
It was at least 1.5 miles to 2 miles,
And that's a lot of time.
and it's like, why not?
Yeah.
Might as well. It was funny because we got to the bottom of the glacier, and we actually ran into a coworker of ours that was hiking up to just the lake. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, hey, what's up? Yeah, we've been out for 10 hours already. Nice to see you. Yeah. So yeah, just little things like that. Like, I can think back on so many cool experiences from that summer, but it goes back to stepping outside of that comfort zone and pushing myself just to experience new things.
Right on.
Yeah.
And it's cool. I think something good to end on would be, it's cool how maybe as you matured, that your flow state changes.
Yes.
From being completely physical, kind of to start with.
Yep.
And ultimately discovering it, your flow state, maybe as a junior. I would struggle to find flow state for me pre CrossFit.
Sure.
Like to remember it very few times. And maybe I would say probably started yourself, probably your junior year. It's probably when you started
Probably
getting into that.
Yeah.
And then it kind of advanced more and more as you matured.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thanks for coming on.
Yeah. Can I finish with this?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I want to respond to that, because the name of this podcast, right? What's your why? Right. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this, Ty, before today. Like, what is my real why?
Yeah.
Right. And it comes back to a lot of the things we talked about today. My why really is to become the best that I can possibly be in anything that I have passion around. Right. And again, I'm very selective. I'm not going to try to be the best in podcasts, even though we are going to be number one. But like those things that I have passion around, I'm independently competitive. I'm internally competitive. I want to be the best possible dad I can be to my 2 children. I want to be the best husband I can possibly be. Right. I play old men's baseball. I want to be the best baseball player in that old men's league. I want to be the best person that I can possibly be leading those sessions with my clients, whether it's in my full-time role or in B3. It really comes down to that of how can I serve the people around me, give them the best version of myself, And it's that constant state of chasing that. That's my real why. That's what it comes down to.
Right on. That's so cool.
There you go.
I need to ask that, like at the very end.
Do it.
Like, what's your why?
Do it. Or start at the beginning.
Yeah. It's a hard
But also
question. It's a hard question.
That's a tough one to
dive right
answer.
into.
It is. That's deep.
You have to. I think you had to start some service level stuff.
That's fair.
Just to get them comfortable. But yeah,
Good stuff.
that's a great ending.
Fantastic.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ty.
Absolutely. Alrighty, guys, that was an awesome podcast. I really appreciate you listening to the podcast, sharing it, doing what you will with to support it. If you want to support it more, shirts will be coming out this week or maybe next week. And if you're interested, let me know. I'd love to get one ordered for you and sent out to you. But Ryan, thank you for coming on the show again. And everybody, have a great rest of your day.